Hi, I'm Chef Matt here in Kansas City, the Roth Living Showroom, Sub-Zero Wolfen Cove. And today we're going to do a beautiful chocolate cream tart in the French style, if you will. And I want to start off by showing you how I make the crust. It's a very simple crust to put together. It's called pâté sucré, which means a sweet crust. And it's a crispy tart dough. So we're going to start off, we're going to use the food processor today to use it to cut the butter in. So we're going to start by adding in our 1 1/4 cups of some flour. We're going to put in 8 tablespoons of some very cold butter, about 4 teaspoons or so of some sugar, and about a half a teaspoon of some salt. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and get this machine pulsing so that we can chop the butter into very little pieces. So we want it to actually start to bring the dough together a little bit. And you can even let that machine run for a moment. And what it's doing is taking the butter into very fine little pieces. It's going to remind you a lot of a sugar cookie dough when we're done. The difference is it's not as sweet. There we go. The motor's starting to make a different sound now, and I can tell that I'm starting to get a little bit tackier in there. So at this point, I'm going to add an egg yolk in. Okay? So a little yolk for richness. And so I'm going to crack the yolk and that white into this, and then just bring that yolk up. All right. We'll let that come together. Now the dough's come together even more, and our last step in this is going to be, we've got some ice water. And with the machine running, we're going to add some ice water. And that dough is pulled together. It's really that simple. Okay, so now I'm going to spread this out here. I got just a little bit of moisture on the bottom of that processor. So we're going to just scrape that bowl just a little bit. All right, let's go back on for just about 10-15 seconds at most. There we go. Once that dough is starting to spin around, then we know it's pulled all that moisture out. So now, look at this. So we basically have like a sugar cookie dough. Isn't that really cool? Very easy to play with. Just think of it as grown-up Play-Doh, if you will. Okay? Now, what we're going to do at this point is we're going to press this out into a little bit of a disc, if you will. Okay? And let's go ahead and we're going to bring over another sheet of plastic. See if I can do this. There we go. Just 2 sheets of plastic wrap. Okay? And from here, we're going to roll out this dough. If you switch directions every few rolls, then you're going to retain a fairly round shape. Okay? So we just keep going. At this point, we're rolling out the dough in a warmer state, but then we're going to put a chill on it. Okay? And what this dough is going to offer you for your tart is a crunchier, crisper, with a little bit of a creamy center to that dough. So think of it like the perfect sugar cookie dough, if you will. Crispy on the outside and a little bit tender inside. All right. So I'm going to finish rolling this dough out. Just takes another minute or so. And then we're going to use this tart pan with a little bit of parchment at the bottom. And I'm going to gently place that tart dough in there. And then we're going to refrigerate this dough for about a half hour. We want the cold butter that we had in the food processor to get hard again, so that when this goes in the oven, we've got that cold butter in the dough hitting that oven, and it's going to stand better, and those sides are going to bake nicer and not droop down as much. Okay? So I'll be back with the next step in just a minute. Okay, so now we're going to make our chocolate silk pudding for this chocolate cream tart, and I call it silk because it's so creamy, so silky texture. So I have the tart that we baked off earlier, the tart crust, okay. This was that pâté sucré, which that transfers to a sweet crust. Now this took about 22 minutes on convection at 325. And now I'm just going to peel this off. It's easier to do this before you fill that, and you notice how nicely that shell stays together. So very gently, you can handle it like that, okay? So we'll put that out front and center. So now we've got some milk getting warm here, and you want to use at least a 2%, if not a whole milk, just because it needs a little bit of that fat content in there for stability. So while this is getting warm, we're going to add into our bowl, we're going to put in some sugar, we're going to put in some cornstarch, so 6 tablespoons of sugar and 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. And then we're also going to put in some egg yolks, okay? And what sets us apart from a standard pudding is that we're just using the yolks. We want a very rich result, okay? And we're going to stir this mixture together. So if I just poured the hot milk over the yolks, it would set them, it would cook them right away. But because I've got this mixture with some sugar in it now, that keeps the eggs from cooking. And now they're going to turn into a thickening agent along with the cornstarch, okay? Also, something that's very important is I'm adding just a little bit of salt to that mixture. Salt's going to heighten the flavor of that chocolate and really bring out the profiles of the chocolate. Okay, so we've got that mixed up, and at this point, I'm just going to remove this. Now the milk hasn't come to a boil, it's hot, but it's not at a boil by any means. And we're just going to temper this mixture. So we're going to add some of that hot milk into the yolk mixture, and we're just bringing the temperature of this mixture up to what was in that pot, okay? And at this point, we're ready to add it back on. And I'm going to turn up my heat at this point. And at this point, I just want to stay with a constant stir because this mixture was already warm, and you can do this on induction or on the range top. However, it's going to be really quick at coming to a boil, and as soon as it comes to that boil, it's going to stiffen up, right? This is very similar to some old school pudding recipes that our moms, grandmas, families made when we were growing up. The biggest difference is that we're using some really good chocolate. We're using some nice dark Belgian chocolate. And you ask, what's a good dark chocolate? 55 to 60% is a good start. Now, if you want to come in for a second, I'll show you. We are already thickened. So you see that mixture? How it's nice and bubbly and thick, okay? So now we're ready to add our chocolate in. So at this point, the chocolate is going to melt really easily. Chocolate melts at about 80 degrees. So if I put that mixture into this, we're going to use the residual heat to melt that chocolate. All right. The chocolate is also going to help set the filling as this cools off. So if we were making a banana cream pie or a coconut cream pie, we'd use more cornstarch because we need to make the mixture thicker as it's set. But with the chocolate, we don't need to do that. The chocolate is a natural thickener itself. Okay? And we are completely melted already. You can see that. All right. Now, the last addition is going to be not some cold chocolate, but some room temperature chocolate. And room temperature butter. My apologies. I'm looking at chocolate and adding butter. But the addition of the butter is going to add some additional richness, some silkiness, some butteriness. Chocolate and butter, those are just two beautiful components that bring out the flavor in this recipe. So at this point, I'm done mixing. Now you could do a variation on this. You could add in some raspberry liqueur or some orange liqueur at this point if you'd like. I think this dessert has a beautiful flavor all its own. And at this point, we're going to pour the chocolate filling into the tart shell. Oh, doesn't that just look beautiful? Okay, and you can make it as tall as you want. We can probably get close to all of that filling in there. That's a nice size for me right there. I don't want anything that's really tall. Now, if you've got a pie plate, you can go ahead and use all this filling. I've got about a quarter cup or so left. And you know what? My girls at home, that's their job to make sure they clean that pot after I'm done with that. They'll make sure that they take care of this. All right? So at this point, the tart's going to go in the refrigerator uncovered for about 2 hours. And then I'm going to lightly place some plastic wrap over that, and I'm going to let this tart sit overnight. It's really going to set up perfectly if you give it that overnight set and make this dessert a day or two before. And you know, something like Valentine's Day. Oh, but you know what? I don't reserve just Valentine's Day for partaking in this beautiful dessert. It is so delicious, and you know, with a small slice, it's not a really big, deep pie per se. It satisfies just enough of that chocolate craving, and some freshly whipped cream with that is just going to set it off even more. Maybe some fresh berries on the plate. All right, we'll show you a fun presentation with that shortly. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, and if you'd like to see more content, please check out our YouTube channel, Roth Living, or Roth Living Lifestyles on Instagram. Take care.